Greetings, puny humans, and welcome to Quill's Monster Cheat Codes, where the knowledge flows like lava, and I'm about to roast you. Well, not literally, unless you're a fire elemental, in which case, prepare to be burned. We're giving you tips and tactics from the updated 2024 Monster Manual. And today we're talking about fire elementals. And trust me, by the end of this video, you'll be a total pro at controlling them. So buckle up, grab your spellbook and some oven mitts, and let's dive into the fiery depths of the elemental planes. Roll the intro. Caution. The AJ and Quill show contains D&D content and is intended for a D&D audience. And, besides that, they're really weird. Alright, here's the deal. Elementals are like the primordial, chaotic cousins of regular bonfires, straight from the elemental planes, inside the elemental chaos. These guys aren't from around here. It's actually why their intelligence is so low. If you were summoned to a completely alien dimension, you would probably seem pretty dumb to the locals too. But one thing is clear, they're here to wreck your player's day. They're beings of pure elemental energy, but the ones your players will typically encounter are summoned to the material plane by spellcasters, who are basically saying, "Hey you, go do my bidding." Now, because they aren't from the material plane, they don't have the typical survival instincts you would expect. They're not like, "Oh, I need to survive this fight." No, they're more like, "Please destroy me so I can simply go home. I'm tired." Basically like a fiery Mr. Meeseeks.
Oh, I'm Mr. Meeseeks, look at me!
Now to break them down. Enter the fire elemental. These things aren't that strong with a strength of 10, but their con and dex are really high. So they're fast and tough. Perfect little scrappers. They like being in melee combat, but they move around a lot. Fire elementals are distinguished by their immunity to fire, exhaustion, grappled, paralyzed, petrified, poison, the poison condition, prone, restrained, and unconscious. For traits, they have fiery aura, fire form, illumination, and water susceptibility. Fire form allows a fire elemental to occupy the same space as one of its opponents, and they use this feature to charge rapidly through their enemies. What they're trying to do is set everything on fire. When a fire elemental uses its fire form to ignite the creatures in its space it shares, it deals an automatic 1d10 points of fire damage to that creature. Normally, creatures can't share the same space, and moving through another creature's space is treated as difficult terrain. The fire elemental ignores this. Now, most importantly, fire form is not an action. It's just something that happens as the fire elemental moves. It's not required to stop in a hostile creature's space either, though it can. It says it damages a creature the first time it enters a creature's space on a turn. Any turn. It can still leave afterwards and the creature remains on fire. Thus, if the fire elemental can move 50 feet and pass through every enemy creature's space as it's doing so with its impressive movement, that's exactly what it's going to do. And it can still make its 2 burn attacks using its multi-attack action, either before, during, or after it does its movement. Now, moving between opponents and using its fire form still causes opportunity attacks. But, like a habanero honey badger, the fire elemental simply doesn't care. It wants to be destroyed. Fiery aura is great, but it's pretty passive in that it just happens at the end of the fire elemental's turn. Each creature in a 10-foot emanation take 1d10 fire damage automatically, and creatures and flaming objects in that emanation start burning. Oh, and don't forget their real superpower is that they're very, very angry.
I'm always angry.
Why? Because they're literally trapped here. And they're like, "Ugh, the last thing I wanted to do today was fight for some stupid wizard." Now on the stat side, dark vision? Yup. 60 feet of it, just like a cat made of fire. But they aren't going to use it. With their illumination feature, they shed bright light in a 30-foot radius around themselves, and dim light for 30 feet beyond that. I mean, I guess the dark vision does let the elemental treat the dim light as bright light in that area, but why a creature that naturally sheds bright light from its flaming body would ever develop dark vision is beyond this dragon. Perhaps it's a mistake. They have 2 burn attacks they can use with their multi-attack action, and you should always use the multi-attack action. Their burn attack isn't like a typical punch or kick. These flaming fists are literally burning you. But seriously, these new rules have a burning effect. You can find it under hazards in the PHB. Now the damage doesn't stack with multiple hits, but you can hit multiple creatures in a turn and they can all be burning. Now this is awesome because it means that usually someone will have to waste their own action to put out the flames and stop the burning. Or one of their allies will have to waste an action to do so. This is gravy for the elemental. Wasting a creature's actions is fantastic in combat. What about physical damage, you wonder? No problem. Elementals are resistant to all physical damage. This has changed because they got rid of the from non-magical weapons bit in the update. You can hit them with a sword, shield, or spiked bat, and they won't even care. This is why, when using an elemental in combat, you don't need super detailed plans. Looking at their intelligence and wisdom scores, these creatures aren't into elaborate plans at all.
So I really look like a guy with a plan.
It's more primal and instinctual. And your players should absolutely feel that. Just run into the middle of your players and let the chaos ensue. Now, how does a fire elemental decide who it's going to attack? It's pretty simple. It's like playing an extreme game of tag, but with napalm. For the fire elemental, start by running into as many enemies as possible. They have 50 feet of movement, so you should be able to get quite a few in that range. Afterwards, if someone isn't on fire, then they're probably the next target. Oh, and if a cold magic user is around, you better bet the fire elemental is going to give some extra love. Now, these elementals hate cold, as indicated by their water susceptibility feature.
Hold up. Wait a minute.
The cold, it messes with their fiery nature.
Ooh, that's bad.
Yes, it helps them be destroyed faster so they can return to their home plane.
That's good.
But it dilutes their essence with an opposing element, which they abhor.
That's bad.
So a fire elemental will absolutely take the opportunity to focus more on cold-using magic users. But honestly, this thing is very angry all the time. If you're casting Cone of Cold, it's just gonna hit you out of spite. In combat, what this means is, it's definitely going to try to use one of its burn and multi-attacks on that creature. And it will absolutely try to get the creature as it's moving through its targets, more than likely trying to finish its move on that creature so that it can be within its fiery aura. So, how as a dungeon master are you to handle this blazing menace? Simple. Keep the pressure on. Make sure the fire elemental is constantly moving through your players, igniting them like it's a fuse on the stick of a TNT. Just make sure that at the end of your turn, as many enemies are in the radius of its fiery aura as possible for that eventual boom. And as you're moving through all the players with your impressive 50 feet of movement, don't forget to use your multi-attack to burn them along the way. And if someone's blasting you with cold or trying to use water against you, give them some extra attention, saving one of those burn attacks for that character. But also, remember, this creature is chaotic. Because that's what fire elementals do best. Don't focus too much on precision or fancy tactics. Their goal is destruction and spreading fire, pure and simple. And trust me, your players are going to feel the heat. Alright, puny humans, that's all for today. Now you know how to turn your fire elemental into a true monster to engage your players. But before you go, make sure you hit that subscribe button, or a fire elemental might come and visit your campaign. And trust me, You don't want that. See you next time, and we'll talk about another terrifying monster from the new 2024 Monster Manual. Until then, keep your flames hot and your players on their toes. Goodbye.
Yeah, 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 yeah.